Let's talk about this today, how to overcome the fear of posting and perfectionism. John, do you want to take over?
Right. Yep. Okay. Go with me on this. This is Zoraya contacted me and said, right, how can we really take ownership of this? So let me give you a bit of context. I'm going to tell you a few stories. It's going to take about 7 minutes all up. So I'm very lucky. I coach sort of high performers, high achievers, right, around the world. And what I do is I go down to -50, -100 meters inside them to try and figure out what's going on deep inside that they're playing on the surface, including in things like LinkedIn or in their way of managing people, way of communicating, etc. All right, because that's just the tip of the iceberg, but actually the large part of the iceberg is inside. And I've noticed two things in this category of high performers and very smart people, of which you are all, okay? The first thing relates to sensitivity, and the second relates to confidence. And I'm going to take each in turn, all right? So in terms of sensitivity, intelligent people, like all of ourselves, have two main characteristics that I've noticed. One is high intellectual capacity, and the other is high sensitivity. Now, high intellectual capacity means you're quick, you understand before people finish their sentence, you know what they're talking about, you can communicate, you're structured, etc. And society has always been very positive in terms of intellectual capacity. We get taught that at school, and we get paid for our intellectual capacity applied to a certain purpose or product or service. Okay, all good. Sensitivity is something a lot more ambiguous. Society's been ambiguous in saying, well, it's not necessarily a good point. And when we were young, we heard that boys shouldn't cry and girls cry too much. Okay. And what happens in a lot of people is this sensitivity gets sort of protected or bunkerized. Why? Because sensitive people can be hurt. We might have been bullied in school, or by definition, if we're sensitive, we can be hurt more. We pick up on a lot of negative energy and things like that. Now, when I talk about sensitivity and high sensitivity, I mean sort of you walk into a room and without anyone saying anything, you pick up on whether it's harmonious energy, toxic energy, okay? Another way to understand if you're sensitive or not is you hear someone speak, but you're hearing the underlying messages of what they're really saying, okay? You're very affected by the weather, good weather, bad weather. That's what I mean by sensitivity. And as I said, this has been ambiguous, this side. So what happens is a lot of us are very focused on the intellectual capacity. We get training, school, degrees, etc. And we repress the sensitivity side, which actually creates an imbalance in very smart, sensitive people, as if you're living like this, all right? And the name of the game of a lot of people is to unbunkerize or unprotect the sensitivity, because your natural state is high intellectual capacity and high sensitivity. And I've noticed in high performers, high achievers, that at the age of 40, 35, 40, 45, the sensitivity kind of knocks on the door and comes across in two different ways. One is suddenly you've got creativity, which has been locked up inside, which is saying, I need to get out. And you might give up a corporate job and go and want to create your company or sort of be creative. Okay, that's one way of seeing it. The other way sensitivity comes out is that you become very purpose-driven. You've had a job, you know how to earn money, your clients are happy, and you could have carried on doing that. But the sensitivity says, no, but I want to bring this intellectual capacity and link it to something which is truly in my heart, my purpose, the life I want to build, the service I want to give, not that someone is telling me to do, but that I want to give. And a lot of people transition from corporate into their own company. Okay. So this is how sensitivity sort of breaks out of the box and compels us to launch maybe our own business or transition into something we love doing. That's one big trait of high performers and high achievers. The second one, and this is the most important one for what we're talking about, is we all look confident on the outside. All right. I've been listening to every single one of you. You've been listening to me. We're all confident. You can put us in front of hundreds of people. We would do our stuff and string sentences together. We would give value, etc. But that's on the outside. On the inside, in over 90% of the high achievers, which include CEOs of banks, industrialists, entrepreneurs, etc., that I coach, over 90% of these people have great outer confidence, but very, very low, deep inner confidence. Okay, there's a confident exterior and a very fragile interior, which I sort of call your inner child. Okay, and I have this image of the inner child in each one of us who's in a cave, who's terrified that the world is going to see us for who we really are. Okay, as if we're naked. And some of the fears that come out in a lot of very successful people that you would never even dream that they have this fear inside, but they do, are things like not being loved, not being useful, being rejected, not belonging, things like that, okay? And we all have these in different categories, from the affection we got or didn't get from our parents, from the cultures we were brought up in, etc. And so that creates a gap between the outside you and the inside you. And the name of the game is, how do we bridge that gap so that what the world sees on the outside, we feel on the inside as well? Instead of having this kind of clash of, we know on the outside, we have the competence, we have the capacity, we have the experience, we have the track record, but on the inside, I am terrified of people judging me or not liking me and things like that. And this plays out in so many things in our daily lives, including things like LinkedIn. That's why we're here. LinkedIn is like one of the playgrounds or the platforms where we are all playing out our inner confidence relationship to ourselves. And the conclusion of this is, if we don't focus on strengthening our inner confidence, meaning our relationship to ourselves, and bridge that gap, I don't care what you're selling, I don't care what your product is or your services, this is going to be the biggest thing that holds us back in achieving the success that we want for our business, but actually inside ourselves, so that we feel aligned, congruent, coherent, where the outside and inside are matching, rather than having this big gap inside. Okay, so hopefully that's resonating in you and you're following me on the story. So now the question is, right, well, thanks, Jonathan, but how do I go about it? I mean, I get what you're saying, but how do I close that inner confidence or strengthen that inner confidence so that the adult version of me and the 7-year-old inner child version of me, well, we kind of go out of the cabin and walk in the forest every day and bring this intellectual capacity, this sensitivity, this outer confidence and inner confidence to the world without fear, without fear of judgment. Well, there's 2 ways I do it. Number 1, and I invite everybody to do this, welcome to my success bottle. Okay, this is my success bottle because it's sitting on a piece of paper which contains my 10 greatest achievements. Okay, it's a disgusting piece of paper simply because it's had so much food and water and things that it's like become a manuscript from ancient times. But I don't change it because it's real. And on this success list are not things that society thinks are successful, but what I am most proud of. Okay, things like having the courage to be me. All right, changing careers at the age of 40, having a great relationship with my kids and my wife, very personal stuff. And this sits beside my desk with this bottle on it. And I spend my day drinking water because I'm coaching a lot, I'm doing programs online. And every time I pour this bottle into a glass, okay, and I drink it, oops, shit, I just put it everywhere. Cheers. I am drinking my success, and my conscious mind is picking up on that, and I am drinking what I'm most proud of, a lifetime of achievement of things that matter to me. And that is helping my 7-year-old Jonathan build amazing, strong confidence in himself that he has his place in the world. He can come out of the cavern and be himself, and everything will be fine. Okay. And even when I'm not concentrating on the list or thing and I'm drinking, my subconscious is picking up on this. So I'm constantly feeding my self-confidence, which now means that my previous gap was this, and now it's this. Okay. And what you see on the outside and on the inside is the same thing. So my advice number one, it's so simple. Get yourself a nice little design bottle, have your list, which is now super wet. Okay. Have your list and then drink water. It's good for your health. Okay. That's number one. Number two is the learnings that have come out, if I apply it directly to LinkedIn, and I'll finish with this and then invite reaction, is that number one, no one cares about your post as much as you do. Nobody. Your post is a blink in the day of any other person. Their day is not going to be changed by your post. Okay. So let's put our posts into perspective. It's something that comes across someone's feed that they may or may not read. It's not going to change the world as we know it. So we need to learn to disconnect from this is the most important thing in the world. It's not. Number two, the likes, if relating to inner confidence, if your self-worth is attached to the number of likes you get to a post, then you have delegated your worth to the rest of the world, and they will decide whether you're worth something or you're worth nothing. And I've realized, and Haido, you were saying it as well, I think, some posts get 45 likes and some get 5 likes. Does that mean the 45 one is good and the other one is bad? No, it doesn't. It just means that at that point in time, it's a comment on the idea, not on me. All right. I'm in charge of my worth, not the rest of the world. Otherwise, we're just all depending on likes. It's a comment about that idea at that moment in time with that person, which today can be very relevant and tomorrow can be irrelevant. Okay. Number three is I've realized that that LinkedIn is basically a way for you to have a shop on the high street in London. All right. Imagine any shop, any high street. And you have your shop, and all we are doing is putting different kind of clothes or whatever you're selling. We're putting it in the window to invite someone to walk into the shop. All right. Now they might walk past and say, "Oh, I like that, but I don't have time to walk in." And one day they might walk in, but you're constantly changing what you're putting in the window to just invite some kind of engagement. Right. That's all we're doing. And if we're not comfortable being in the shop window or sort of putting something in the shop window, it's because that 7-year-old inside us is terrified of not being loved, not being accepted, failing, not belonging, etc. So my final advice is go direct to the source, because Raya's giving us wonderful tools and advice based on experience. And you've talked about this, Raya. You've talked about kind of the inner confidence thing. Just realize that the most highly successful people in the world, some of whom I'm very lucky to coach, they have the same problem as all of us. They have the 7-year-old child inside us, and spending time strengthening that relationship then makes LinkedIn something where you've overcome that, and then it's just a discipline thing, but it's not a confidence thing. Because unless we build strong confidence inside with ourselves, it doesn't matter what you do on the outside. It's not going to be sustainable. And I'll finish with that.